Creepers left and right, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stimulate it. Spiders in the mirror and things can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound, the clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around, 2,000 little fires. And ooh, your circle is spreading around from Mars. Keeping barely up with your pace, slowing things down when I wanted to race, catching up again when you chamber to chase. Feels like we're playing space. You always find a way to...
Hello, my friends. Hello, my friends. I'm trying to, I don't know what to do. Hello, happy Monday. We're starting another vlog. Of course, we're starting it in the car. Hopefully I'm not blocking the microphone. I just went and got my nails done. I took the long nails off and I just got gel polish on them, and I just can't work with long nails. I cannot sculpt with them. I use my fingers way too much. I was able to sculpt, but it slowed me down so freaking much that it was just impossible. Not impossible, it was frustrating. That's the thing. I was just so frustrated when I was working, and I was like, I can't do this. So function over beauty, which pains me. Anyway, it's Monday, starting another vlog, and I'm ready for a new audiobook. And honestly, I've already started one. I've already started a little one because I also went to the gym today. It's When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. I have heard from some of my friends on Book Talk, some fantasy readers, that they really, really loved this, and I did not know that this is based, well, it has Slavic folklore as a base, which I dearly, dearly love. So we've already talked about Aleshi and Baba Yaga, so I'm having a good time. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what the plot of this is, because this is very, very short. And that's also another reason why I picked it, because when I finished Crossroads in my last vlog, what I then did is I was listening to the Way of Kings audiobook, and now I'm about 60% of the way through that 1,200 page tome. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now, but truthfully oh goodness, sorry, my wrist is getting sore. Truthfully, what I want to do is just read romance. Just read romance nonstop. So, but I say that, and then I was like, actually, I want to read this here little fantasy book that's about, I don't even know what, by Veronica Roth. I just have been hearing good things about it. So, anyway, I got a new nail tech who did my nails these last 2 times. I've only gone and got them done 3 times. So, I'm going to work with these shorter nails, and if I am not extremely productive, I'm going to go back to the longer nails. Because I want to feel like I have really pretty feminine hands. It's just, I just love how girly they make me feel, you know? And they are expensive. But I'm also sort of feeling like I treat myself, because mental health has been. But obviously, I'm still here vlogging. This intro is so chaotic. So, romance books that I want to read this week are the Harper St. George historical romance. And the other one that I want to read is this one, which I can't remember the title. I've read the first in this series by this author. I had an arc for it, but it was several years back. And then I saw Chandler Ainsley talk about this book and said the hero is really good at, he's longing for the heroine and, sold So I'm going to give this author another try because I didn't like the first in the series. But the theory behind picking those two books is that I want to read, other than Julianne Long and Lorraine Heath, I haven't really read a new historical romance release in a while. I still need to get to Elisa Braden's new release. But these were both published this year. The Harper St. George came out in April. The other one, this one, came out in February. So those are two that I'm going to try and get to. So I thought about not starting this clip until I was for sure going to stick with When Among Crows, because it's not 100% catching my interest right now, but it's so short that I'm like, I'm just going to kind of try and see it through. It's like a 4-hour audiobook. I'm listening to it on Everand, which used to be Scribd. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, welcome to the vlog. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll come back and chat with y'all when I have something of merit to say about these two books. Oh, also, I of course went and got a soda. I always do. But this one is a new one. It's called the Pirate Jack. It is Diet Dr. Pepper, sugar-free coconut, sugar-free pineapple, sugar-free raspberry, and it has some cream in there. And honestly, it's my new favorite drink. It's so good. I love it so much. So, all right, my friends, I'll see you later. Hello, friends. It's Thursday, and I haven't updated you for quite a few days. Man, this week kind of really got away from me. I ended up having to go to the doctor and have an in-office procedure done, which was very painful and kind of wiped me out for a couple of days, but I'm doing better now. Obviously had a lot of work. I've got my only boy home for the summer with me, but you know, even though my oldest two have moved out, it still just seems to be just as busy as ever, and I'm not mad about that. I'm very, very happy about that, and I just love having my youngest son home with me. It's just wonderful. So anyways, book update. So I did actually finish When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. And I didn't have high expectations for this until I heard a little bit of buzz about it, where people were really kind of hyping it up, you know, talking about that it was great, and I don't necessarily agree. Like, I think it was fine. I said I gave it 4 stars, but I feel like, again, like, I feel like I'm being too generous with my 4 stars lately, because I feel like sometimes a book isn't quite deserved. I don't really need half-star ratings unless it comes to like a 3.5, because I feel like some books aren't necessarily a 3-star in terms of quality, like, and that does add a lot to my star rating for me. Like, if a book I think is high enough quality, I will bump it up a little bit, even if maybe I didn't love the story. So this one I think was well done, but I feel it was well structured, it was well written, the characters were good. Hello, my friends. Hello. We haven't sat here in a really long time, have we? Because, I don't know, I'm just so lazy to get my big camera out and I just film on my phone, and so then I just, like, film it anywhere. In 2020, I would always just, like, film my vlogs in the house because it was COVID and, you know, everybody was staying home. So, by the way, I've had several of you ask me if I was going to put my other content. Like, I had privated, taken down some of my old videos, and after a lot of thought and kind of soul searching, I decided to just put all the videos back up. So I think I've got all of them back up. So my old vlogs, the playlists are working. So if you really liked the vlogs or Vlogmas, which honestly, like, that brings me so much joy because I love vlogging, even though I kind of fell out of love with it for a little bit. I really do love vlogging. So they're back up, and you all can go watch them if you want. Anyway, this is where I would always sit because it was just super easy to set up my camera right here, and you know, we weren't going anywhere. Now, obviously 4 years later, life is a lot different and pretty much back to normal, but I'm still in my studio. My art desk is right here. You're sitting on my art desk. That's like books, shipping supplies, my order book for sculptures that I need to make. I'm making a bunch of little turtles right now, little tiny turtles. They're in progress, so they don't really look very turtly right now. But, so, I'm sorry I got cut off yesterday. I was talking about When Among Crows, and my husband called, and then, so it's the next day. So today is Friday, and I haven't really got a lot of, oh hi, oh hello, oh thank you, this coffee, you want to come up here? Come on. Oh thanks. Oh look at this big boy, oh my goodness, he's such a good boy, huh? Yes, he's such a good boy. He's too big, he doesn't even fit in the frame anymore. Look at this sweetheart, he's such a sweet boy. Anyway, sorry for all the rambling that you get. So When Among Crows, let's talk about it. So this is a 200-page novella. It is very, very short, and it was really engaging, and it was really fun, and I had a good time reading it. Now, when I say fun, it wasn't lighthearted at all. This was pretty dark. This was pretty dark. It really has some dark imagery, something that I would call like body horror. It has sort of like creepy fairy tale vibe, and it is based in Slavic folklore, which is very similar to things that you would find in like The Bear and the Nightingale. I believe this is Polish, but I really enjoyed all of the creatures, all of the different types of, I would call them monsters, but I don't know if they're actually monsters that you meet in this. Like, I will say the opening chapter or the prologue of this book had me so hooked. I was fascinated and I was riveted to this. I thought it was going to be fantastic, and I was here for the ride. So it has that type of mythology as a base, and then we have introduction to our characters. So the first chapter, like, I don't want to spoil it too much because this is a very short book, and there's not a lot of plot that's happening here. There is some reveals, but if you like dark fairy tales, if you like urban fantasy, and if you like Slavic folklore, I would for sure pick this up, because I think you would really love this, because all of those things are pretty strong elements. The characters in here, I said they were well done, but they're well constructed on the page, where they feel like a real person, like a real character, but they're also a little tiny bit hard to connect to, and I think that is because for most of the book, you don't know our main character, Demeter. We don't know what his driving force is throughout the book until we get near to the end. And I feel like obviously that is a deliberate move on Veronica Roth's part, because that element of mystery really keeps you reading, because you want to know, what is he even looking for? He's on sort of like a quest. The opening chapter starts with him appealing to a Leshy, or this mythological creature in Slavic folklore, and he wants a favor from them that is going to help him track down Baba Yaga. And that's what the whole first chapter is, and it is, like, honestly, it is one of the best opening chapters that I have ever read. I thought it was perfect. I don't know why the light just changed. I don't like it. Let's see if I can fix it. Can I fix it? No. Anyway, I thought it was a perfect first chapter. I truly, truly did. Like, it was a little bit haunting, it was a little bit eerie, it was a little unsettling, and I was just like, oh, I love this so much, you know, I just was here for it. And then after the first chapter, when he's sort of put through this test or this trial to see if he can earn the favor from them that's going to help him find Baba Yaga, then he gets sent into the mortal world. So then it's set in Chicago, and we have run-ins with all of these different types of creatures. The next chapter starts with him in this movie theater, which is sort of known for all these creatures coming in where they feed off of human fear. Or human pain, even. And pain is a really big element of this book. That's something that Demeter is constantly, like, haunted with. His whole family has a history of that. And I found that really interesting, as, you know, pain is a very universal human experience that we all have, and to some varying degree. I have had chronic pain for many years. I know a lot of you have as well. And pain is something that I am so intimately acquainted with that I always kind of find it fascinating, while also being a little bit repelled when it is featured in books. And the interesting thing about that too is that Veronica Roth herself had chronic pain for many, many years. Well, she still does. She has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I don't know a lot about that. I know a little bit about that. And she wrote a book, Carve the Mark, specifically about her struggles and journey with chronic pain. So I was interested to see that in here, and that is another element that I kind of wish had gotten explored a little bit more. So the characters were difficult to connect with. I felt like a lot of the creatures were kind of met in a very episodic way, where we didn't really get to know what they were, what their purpose was. They were just kind of presented on page to create this type of a feeling in the reader, maybe a little bit of awe or mysterious or even like disgust or dread. but it never really felt like it hit home. The closing chapter is a bookend with the opening chapter, and I really liked that as well. I feel like for the most part this was enjoyable, and again, like earlier in that clip I said that I gave this 4 stars, 3.5 rounded up, and I do feel like 4 is perhaps a little generous, because I don't know that this is a full 4-star read, because I still wasn't like, I don't know, it's not a 3-star read either. There we are in tricky territory, you know, so 3.5, 4 stars. But probably my main complaint is just that it felt a little difficult to connect with the characters, and I think that's tricky when you're doing a novella, when you have such a short amount of time to really be able to latch onto those characters and feel something with them that's going to propel you forward. So in this case, instead of getting you really connected with the character and having that type of an emotional relationship, what she relied on instead was the mysterious element of, why is he on this quest? What is he searching for? What is his purpose? What's going on? We don't know, right? Whereas I feel like if this had been a full novel and you had known a little bit more about his motivations, that would have connected you with him a lot better, and then that would have made you really hang on to those pages. So I think that mix of mysterious elements and sort of knowing the personal details to get you to connect with him better, I think that could have been done better. I said that word a lot, but it was still solid, right? And honestly, I am such a goner for Russian mythology, Slavic folklore in general, that this was 100% right up my alley, and I just really, really loved it. But at the same time, I was just kind of left wanting more. And now I know that is kind of typically a problem that I have with novellas. I usually end up wanting more. I think it's a very rare thing for me to feel completely satisfied with a novella. And I'm not like judging it harshly because it's a novella, because that's just sort of the nature of the thing. But I still feel like there were elements in here that weren't satisfying, and that's what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter how long the book is, I need a satisfying reading experience, and that really didn't give me a hugely satisfying reading experience, you know? So, now, the book that I decided to go with next is actually a sci-fi, and I'm about 10 chapters into it, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to continue reading it or not, so I'm not even going to talk about it right now, because I've only got enough time in my week to include one more book, and I want it to be one I can get through quickly, but also one that I can talk with you guys about, you know? So I'm not sure. The sci-fi that I'm reading, the sci-fi thriller, is Artificial Wisdom. I can't remember the title. It's this picture right here. And I am liking it a lot. It's heavy on the political themes, like heavy on them. But I'm not sure if that's what I'm gonna go with. I probably will, because I only have like 5 hours left. Okay, that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna continue listening to this. So this one is interesting. I'll tell you the summary of it really quickly. So it opens with our main character who is mourning the loss of his wife. She's been gone for like at least 10 years. This is set in the future, like 2050. His wife, who was pregnant at the time, was killed in this like mass, almost an extinction level event of humans, where millions of humans were killed in this climate crisis, this global warming type of effect, basically, where the whole world got so hot that it killed off a lot of the people that were in these certain areas, his wife included. So he is a journalist, our main character, which I can't remember his name, for years and years and years. Well, ever since his wife died, he's been trying to figure out, how did she die? Was it actually natural causes because of the climate crisis, or was it something else that caused her to pass away? So he's very conflicted about that. And at the time of 2050, when this is opening, the world has kind of decided that there's going to be a world dictator, and it's not going to be left up to individuals anymore. So that in order to control the climate crisis so that they don't have another, what would essentially be a mass extinction event where millions and millions of people would die. So it's up for a vote, apparently, for who is going to be the world dictator, who's going to be able to choose and control what's going to happen with the climate crisis. And it is 2 people who are running. One is a former US president, and the other one is, for the first time, an artificial intelligent person who they are presenting with the idea that they will be able to be a true dictator because they have all the facts and all of the intelligence, and they won't be like emotion based on it, you know? So that's honestly, I feel like that whole premise is really pretty interesting, and I think it's a really interesting concept. This is like heavily political, like heavily political. I will say I didn't really know what this book was about before I picked it up. This was recommended to me when I was talking on TikTok about I didn't know what to read next, and a TikTok friend, Jake, recommended that I pick this book up, and so I did, and I am really enjoying it. It's very fast-paced, it's very engaging. I think the premise of it is super duper unique, and I'm just really enjoying it. So that's the one I'm going to continue. I'm going to listen to that right now, and not hopefully, I will come back with a review, maybe at the end of the day, maybe at the end of the day, to let you know my final thoughts on it. I mean, right off the bat, I will say that, so other than the global, like, dictator political thing, a whistleblower has come to our main character and has let him know that there actually may be some things behind the scenes that were not just natural that caused his wife to die. So our journalist hero is now deeply invested in uncovering the truth because of what happened to his wife. So I feel like a lot of times it's fridging of women is talked about, and for good reason, but I will always say, I mean, maybe it is because, I am a romantic and I am a married person, but I will say that the loss of a wife is oftentimes hugely motivating for that character's journey, so I don't have any complaints about that at all. So I'm gonna give it a shot, I'm gonna listen to it, and then I'll come back with my final thoughts on it, and then we'll see if I will get anything else read to include in this vlog. Like I said, I almost didn't vlog because I feel like I almost stopped this vlog because I'm not really reading any romance, and I want to just talk to you about the books that I'm reading, but I also recognize that makes these videos less appealing to some people, so it's not probably going to get as watched as other videos would, and I just need to be okay with that, right? Because I still just enjoy vlogging. I really haven't left my house much this week, so I don't have a lot of B-roll content except for stuff that's in here, but anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Thank you for listening to listening to me talk about books. I'm gonna go continue reading this, and then I will let you know my final thoughts, and I would love to include one more. We'll see if I have time to include one more. So thanks, my friends. I will talk to you in a bit.
Staring at the window on a cloudy morning, trying to lick her wounds while the tea is warming. Sometimes it's like a bird that's never shipped out. Sometimes you go around and I never run the rail. This week has been a mess, but I'm gonna tell you, we're a bit at work, gonna make it brand new. We're gonna put away for a comeback. We all need some time, and I promise you that. I promise you that. I promise you that. I know this can take a while, but it's gonna be alright, girl. And if it won't be today, I'm the shoulder you can cry on. So cry if you wanna cry. Small rainbows will fill your eyes. You cry if you wanna cry. And time will be on you.
I really did have every intention of starting that sci-fi book. That was super weird. My TV just turned on. I was the only one in here. Anyway, I had every intention of starting the Artificial Wisdom, getting back into it. And then I was like, oh, I really want to finish. Let me show you. The Way of Kings. I want to finish this. I want to finish this. I'll just listen to a few chapters. And I only have this much left of this gigantic book. And then 2 hours later, I'm still listening to it. So there's an update for you. So hopefully what I want to finish both of these books. I want to finish Artificial Wisdom and The Way of Kings before the end of the month. So that means I've got today, tomorrow, Sunday. I can do it. It's kind of boiling hot today. I just went to go pick up my grocery order, and I thought I would update you because it's Saturday afternoon, and I so desperately want to finish these books for this vlog. I know for sure I'm going to finish The Way of Kings because I've only got like 15% of that left, which is still significant because it's like a 1,200 page book, but I know I can do it. And honestly, I'm way more invested in that book than I am Artificial Wisdom. I am still enjoying Artificial Wisdom, but I feel like this is not character driven in a way that is satisfying for me. I think very specifically our main character is so one note at this time, where his entire character arc is really about the grief of his wife, which, you know, I'm a romantic. I love a grieving widower. I do. And especially the fact that he's been like grieving her for 10 years. And obviously that is like his driving force in the plot. That's what's moving him forward. That's what's motivating him to try and uncover the mystery, to find answers. I mean, combined with that and that he is a journalist, that's really what's moving him. But I don't feel like I know him. I feel like that's all I know about him. And so in that way, he feels very one note, very one-dimensional. But again, I'm only halfway through that one, so I'm sure that will change. But at this point, especially when I compare it to The Way of Kings, which is so incredible, and the characters are so deeply multifaceted with so many different motivations and struggles and trials and fears, and I just... The Way of Kings, I feel like, is truly a masterpiece. So I feel like that is maybe coloring my point of view. But anyway, I gotta drive home. My arm is falling asleep, and I'm gonna keep reading, and I'll let you know probably my final thoughts. I just wanted to note that little observation. I did finish both of the books. I finished I finished The Way of Kings first, and then I finished Artificial Wisdom just now. And let's talk about Artificial Wisdom first. So this is, I already told you basically what it's about. Sci-fi, sort of sci-fi futuristic dystopian thriller. It's very fast-paced. It's very, very quickly moving. In the previous clip I had mentioned a little bit of criticism because I felt like the main character was a little bit one note, that he was kind of distilled down to his grief, and he did in fact end up growing throughout the remainder of the book, like as you would expect and as you would hope. But it's still, and I think like it still wasn't quite the character growth that I was hoping for, and I think that's almost entirely because of I finished The Way of Kings. Like, I just couldn't stop reading it. I loved it. It's a 6-star read for me, and so the thing that I love about The Way of Kings is really the characters in there, which I'll talk about in just a second. And honestly, anything, not necessarily anything, but especially a book that is intended to be very fast-paced and very like a mystery type of book or thriller where you're having like event after event after event, kind of not quite this far, but kind of like a Bourne movie, Jason Bourne. Like, I have to clarify, like that type of a movie where it's just like kind of things are constantly happening. It's not going to have the same type of character work as a 1,200 page book is going to have, and so I don't mean to intertwine their reviews because I want to talk about them individually and separately, but it was something that I noticed that it was going to be hard for Artificial Wisdom, based upon the book that it intends to be, to compare with the kind of character work that I was getting and that left me like 100% fulfilled from The Way of Kings. So Artificial Wisdom, I decided to give it 3.5 stars, and I haven't rated it on Goodreads yet, so I'm not sure if I'll probably round up to 4. But again, I feel like that's being very generous because even though, and this is the type of reader that I am, even though this book was very fast-paced and there were a lot of like twists happening towards the end, and fast-paced in the way that things were happening, I was still kind of bored, and I've kind of decided that's because of a couple of things. One is that I just wasn't invested in the character
because for the majority, or at least for well over half of the book, he was distilled down to his grief of his wife being the only thing really driving him. And I think especially when you're in like a survival type of situation, or when the fate of the world is like hanging in balance, there needs to be something else other than his past moving him forward. Like, I would have actually liked it if there were other things about him that were more motivating to him than kind of trying to figure out what happened to his wife and mourning her and grieving her, even though that was really, I felt like it was beautifully executed here. So I was bored with that, but there was another reason that I was bored, and I've decided that this author really relies on dialogue to tell you key information about the story. And so in that way, it feels a lot like he's telling us and not showing us. It feels like he doesn't trust us to pick up clues that he's putting down, or perhaps, this is this author's debut. And I think it is very impressive for a debut. I think it is a solid story. It's well plotted, but there were a few things that made it not a knock out of the park for me, and again, that is likely just the characters overall. There needs to be more of an investment other than something that we see that motivates male characters all the time, which is the death of a lover or a wife, a wife especially, I think. And then just the way that the dialogue revealed everything. So we were getting all of our information through exposition, and I just found that to be boring. That's not my favorite way to do it, especially if it is a type of thriller where the action, the reveals, the threat is what's driving us. Like, why are you telling it to us? That feels like hand-holding type of thing, and I just don't like that. I love thrillers or mysteries or anything that has reveals in it. I love it when the author doesn't spell it out for you. I don't want to be told what is happening. I want to be able to put the pieces together myself, So that made this a little bit weak. I also will say that the ending of this was kind of rushed, but I didn't mind that too much because I kind of just wanted it to be over, but I noticed it enough. So I am slightly disappointed with this book because I was really hoping it was going to be like a new favorite, but I think it just wasn't necessarily the type of book that I enjoy for the most part. I don't really love, sorry, I'm going to hold this a little differently. I just don't love books like this for the most part. Occasionally I can really get behind a book like this that is just relying, but again, it would have to have strong characters and it would have to not rely on exposition to get me the information, So 3.5, possibly rounded up to 4. I'm not decided yet because the author seems like he's a great guy. I know a lot of my friends on TikTok really love this, and so I don't want to be too harsh because that has burned me in the past. With book friends when I've been quite harsh about a book that they loved. And I don't think it's a bad book. It just wasn't a crystal book, Okay, so now on to The Way of Kings. The Way of Kings. I brought my little paperback out here. I ended up buying a new paperback, a new mass market, and I did spine training on it so that the spine isn't broken anymore. I actually didn't read this. I read it on my Kindle, and some of the audio. The audio was really great too. So I just have to say, I just freaking love this book so much. Like, I love it so much. I'm going to put a picture in here from now on. I fell in love with that book. I mean, I don't know if I told you guys here or if I mentioned it somewhere else, but I have been a fan of Brandon Sanderson forever. When my oldest son, and he's a grown adult now, when he was like 12 years old, I introduced him to a lot of Brandon Sanderson books because he was a big reader, but he was kind of outgrowing a lot of the like middle grade books, and it's really hard to find books for teenage boys and that has like appropriate content in it, like he wasn't ready to read books about dating at that age. He wasn't ready to read books about like drugs, but he wanted to read. He was a voracious reader. So we started reading a lot of Brandon Sanderson books. And I'm from Utah. Brandon is from Utah. And around that time when my son was about 12, I was really into writing. Like I was trying to learn how to write my own book. And I actually did end up writing a book. I wrote several. My hair is driving me crazy today. And Brandon used to do a podcast called Writing Excuses that I listen to so much in the car and wherever that my kids can even recite it. It's a great podcast. I think it's still going, but I don't think Brandon is one of the co-hosts anymore. So, suffice it to say, I have a long history with Brandon Sanderson, and I love his books. I love him as a person. I think he's fantastic. So when The Way of Kings, I saw it around that time when my son was 12, so this is like probably 10 years ago. I had a Kindle for the first time, and The Way of Kings was on sale for like $1.99. Didn't know anything about it, bought it because it was Brandon Sanderson, and it has remained on my Kindle for over 10 years, for over 10 years probably, unread. And I was a little surprised when I started to hear it really take off on BookTube specifically, and then it's huge on TikTok right now too. And it was one of those books that I heard so much hype about, that everyone said it's Brandon's best work, it's fantastic, it's one of the best epic fantasies of all time. And that hype, combined with the length of it, combined with my love of Brandon and not wanting to get, like, disappointed, really gave me the freeze, the paralyzation almost of not wanting to pick it up and read it. So I didn't for a long, long time. And then on TikTok, I started making some new fantasy reader friends, and Austin, who also has a YouTube channel, I'll tag him below. He started a book club on Fable for the Stormlight Archives, and so the month of June was The Way of Kings, and he had it set up where we had a certain amount of chapters to read each week, and I thought, you know what, that's doable. That's doable. So that's what got me started on it, and I haven't participated in the book club too much, like very, very, very little, but I have thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. I'm sorry I gave you so much backstory. If you somehow stumbled upon this vlog and you don't know me, you didn't care about all that. But I was not... All of that history I think is important to why I decided not to read it for so long, but also I want to get across to you that I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 6 stars. It's only like the 4th book I've gave 6 stars this year. It is a fantastic fantasy book with some of the best character work that I've seen in a really long time. And yeah, so the basic plot of this is epic high fantasy in a completely imagined world. We follow mostly three main characters. Kaladin, who is a warrior, Dalinar, who is a nobility of type, and he's also like a general and a warrior himself. He has this very famous, very powerful sword. And then we also follow Shallan. I'm not sure how to say her name. Shallan. She is our female character that we're following, and she is on a quest to try and save her family from financial ruin after the death of her father. Now, I've simplified that a lot because there are so many reveals in this book, largely that happen at the end, but honestly throughout the whole book, that kind of make you realize that what you think these characters are and what you think their journey is not at all what it actually is. And so on a fantasy reader level, the world building in this is absolutely fantastic. It is very creative. It's very well thought out. It makes sense. It's very easily digestible too. This is a very, very easy book to get into. The world building doesn't seem too difficult. The writing isn't dense. It's sometimes, I think you could call it very simplistic. The dialogue is, kind of funny, kind of quirky, and kind of has like a homeboy, not really like a homeboy, but like a hometown, that's what I'm looking for, not homeboy, like a hometown guy kind of humor, kind of, like the humor in here just reminds me of a lot of Utah people that I know, and for that reason I kind of really like it and find it charming. I think that so a fantasy world building level, it's fantastic. The magic system is very interesting, and there is literally hardly any info dumping in here. Most of the world that you are getting is thrown through character experiences, which again, I really, really love, and it also keeps you very compelled to continue reading it because it's not ever like just a slog of information that just gets dumped on you all at once, or you're not just thrown into the deep end and you're left floundering, like trying to figure out what's going on. I think he has a really, really good grasp. Obviously, Brandon Sanderson, I think he's pretty much a master of writing fantasy, but he has a really good grasp of understanding and knowing how to get the reader the information of his world without overwhelming you or without boring you. Like, I think the balance there was really perfect. The plotting of this was fantastic, and a large portion of this book feels like, almost all of this book feels like we're just working up to get to the end. And it's almost like the end is kind of where I can feel like the main story is going to start. So this is a series, this is the first in a series. There are 4 books out, and a couple of novellas. And then the 5th one comes out in December. So, you know, it's a task. It's kind of can feel like overwhelming, like a task to read this series. But I will say, I feel like this book was 100% worth the read. I would say I kind of regret that I didn't read it sooner, but I feel like this was just the perfect time for me to read this. And honestly, like, when I talk about the characters who I feel like are so real, so realistic, they're flawed in a lot of ways. They feel sometimes like you can tell this character has been backed into a corner and they're trying to do, you know, their best at that moment, and sometimes their best leads to horrible consequences. And it just feels like even though it's set in a fantasy world, it feels like these characters are very real, and you have a lot of empathy for them, and you understand why they make the choices that they do, even while at the same time you're like, you idiot, why would you do that? But again, it feels like so true to who they are as people. So, but the thing that just really completely won me over pretty much the whole time I was reading this is just this love I had for these characters, because almost all of them are in situations that make you feel a lot of empathy for them and make you feel a lot of like kinship with them almost, even though their circumstances are extreme. Like, it's in a fantasy setting, but a lot of their problems aren't fantastical necessarily. It's problems of like betrayal or loss or grief, or, you know, trying to find your place in the world. Like, all of those things are so relatable to just our modern day life, and that's what makes fantasy really work for me, is when you put these characters in a situation that feels extreme, that feels very fantastical, but at the same time they're responding, they are reacting in a way that you can relate with things that are happening in your life. And I think that's truly what fantasy brings to the table. I think that's one of the biggest like powers that it has, is getting people to feel and understand and to feel seen and to feel heard, while also recognizing that, you know, it has that little bit, that tiny little gap where it feels like relatable, you can understand, but at the same time you've never had a circumstance like this because it's part fantasy. But I mean, I know there are probably a lot of people who could relate to this, because one of the big themes in this is war and being a soldier, and how that affects you and how that may make you feel differently about people. And it's just, oh gosh, it was just so freaking beautiful. I loved it so much. And, you know, I've been saying for quite a while that in romances, specifically like fantasy romances, like, I'm so tired of alpha broody men who are just the worst, you know? And when I say that, I feel like it's hard for me to, like, I want to make sure I'm getting the nuance here right. Like, I'm not saying I want good characters the whole way through. But what I really want, specifically in heroes, in men, is men who want to be good, who have like this solid moral center, who, even though sometimes maybe they deviate from it and they do things that are wrong, that they know are wrong, but they still have like that overwhelming sense of goodness and rightness, sort of like an Aragorn character from Lord of the Rings, you know. And that's what drives them, even though sometimes they don't make the best choices. It's that they have that desire to be good. And this book was just filled with so many characters like that, specifically the two men, very noble, like good men. And I just love reading about that. Like, I do, even though they make mistakes. They're haunted by their mistakes, you know. These aren't the type of men that you read about who are just like, I don't know, out for some good times. Like, these are men who have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they want to be good, and like this moral code, this sense of honor. The same thing is how I felt about the characters in the Jade City books, the Greenbone Saga. That moral code, that feeling of honor, that's what I'm wanting. And the characters in the Greenbone Saga, they are so gray, almost black. Not black, because they still have that sense of honor and morality that I really, really am searching for in stories. Like, I want, especially if I'm reading any type of fantasy, not in contemporary really, I want these characters to have that sense of honor and to want to be good, or to want to fight for the good, whether that's for their family, for people they love, for, you know, their country or whatever. Like, that's what I'm looking for, and that's what The Way of Kings gave to me. And it was just beautiful. I loved it so freaking much. I loved it. I loved it. I was never bored reading this, and that's saying a lot because it's 1,200 pages. And that's not to say this is a perfect book, but it was perfect for me. And I think that it is 100% because of the characters. Because if you take the fantastic world building out of this, I would still read it. I would still read these characters if this was a historical book. I would still read and root for these characters, you know? And to me, that's the thing that will sell me on this book, this series, more than anything else. So I'm so glad that I finally read this. I'm so glad that Austin had this as his book club, and I'm just in love with it, and I think it's fantastic. So if you're all on the fence about this and you like the things that I like and you like what I'm talking about, I think you would love The Way of Kings. So anyway, I have been jabbering far too long. I appreciate y'all for being here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me like a sword emoji. Are there sword emojis? I feel like there has to be something, because swords are a big deal in The Way of Kings. If you can't find a sword, something gray for metal armor. Anyway, thank y'all my friends. I'll see you in my next video.